when I was growing up, a community was where you got support, where you gave support. We've now grown into such a global world. A lot of that has been lost.
Cate Luzio is the founder and CEO of Luminary, a global professional education and networking platform designed to support women and allies through community, learning, and leadership development.
The minute you begin building a community, that means you have to show up for that community every single day. If you're doing it for purely financial reasons, it will never work. If it is truly authentic, that's community. Make no mistake, you have to be engaged. You have to show up. The more you give, the more the community will take. It is not for the faint of heart.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the CEO School podcast. I'm your host, Suneera Madhani, and we are here with Cate Luzio. And I'm so excited for today's episode because Cate is the founder and CEO of Luminary, a global professional education and networking platform designed to support women and allies through community, learning, and leadership development. During COVID, get this, 80% of Luminary's revenue vanished literally overnight. Cate turned around and ended up acquiring 3 separate companies. This is all during COVID, by the way. And now Luminary runs 250 plus programs annually, has members in 30 countries. I think it's north of 20,000 paid members. It's one of the largest communities out there for executives, for entrepreneurs. And so I'm so excited to not just welcome such a luminary example for us, Cate, but a dear friend as well. Yeah. Welcome to CEO School.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. I feel like we've been trying to do this. I always say this to every guest because it does take so long.
It does.
It really does. Like we've had these relationships for so long and you want to get someone on the show. But by the time it gets to all of you, it's been years in the making.
Yeah.
But I think it makes it even more special because you get to work on that relationship. And it's not just oh, here's this hot new guest that is
Totally
coming
agree.
on right now.
Yeah, because now you've got rapport.
Yeah.
It's like 2 friends sitting in your living room and you're getting a seat at the show.
You are. So Welcome to the seat at the show. You're not going to be disappointed. We're actually here at South by Southwest. This is our final episode of South by Southwest. And I was actually on Cate's fireside chat at Google yesterday. The event was so phenomenal. Thank you so much for having me. I met Cate on a panel for Inc. at the Inc. Founder House last year in person, but we served on the Inc. Advisory Council in 2024, selecting the Inc. 250 founders that they had a list that year. We need to congratulate Cate. She's on the list again this year for Inc. 500 and was on it previously. And this goes the same for my story. I was actually really surprised this year that I was on the list as well for the Inc. 500, which is such an honor. And I was only surprised, not because I don't feel like I deserve it or anything because I had already won it for Stacks and then became a judge with you or an advisor for the 250 and then now back at the 500. Yeah. So we have that now in common.
It's crazy.
We're alumni of this. We're Inc. alumni. And that's a good place to be with your girlfriends. So really exciting. Congrats. I want everyone to know everything about Luminary. I've been learning, I feel like we call it that red car effect where you don't see something and then you see it everywhere. That's what's been happening between CEO School and Luminary. And I'm just so excited to forge this amazing partnership that's about to take place. But tell everyone about Luminary, how it started and what happened in COVID.
A little PTSD there, but it was actually, I'll say, the best thing that ever happened to us, and I'll get to that part of the story. But so I spent 2 decades in corporate investment banking before I started Luminary. And before that, I spent a couple of years in startup tech and started my career in nonprofit. So very nonlinear career. I had no idea that I would ever forge a path in finance. And I love when people say, oh, I worked in finance. And I say, well, for how long? And they're like, oh, a year. I'm like, okay, that's not working in finance. 20 years is working in finance, and it was the best thing that I ever did in my career because it was not something that I had planned. I got recruited into it. It gave me the fundamentals of learning how to be a leader, a manager, even better team player, a producer. I was always on the client side. I worked at Bank of America, JP Morgan, and HSBC, and I loved every minute of it because I am a competitor, I'm ambitious, I'm driven, and I love clients. And so I was always on the client side. However, on the side of the desk, I was running our women's networks. I was so involved in making sure women had a seat at the table, giving them voices, mentoring, sponsoring. And I realized back in 2018 that I was only able to do that inside of one company.
Yeah.
And there were so many women across so many different industries that were looking for more mentorship, more sponsorship. And it's great to do it inside of one company. But one of my mentors was like, why don't you do this in a much bigger way?
Mm-hmm.
And I had never thought about that because I was so focused on I'm climbing. And don't get me wrong.
And you had a day job.
And I had a great day job.
Yeah.
But then in 2018, actually in March, so it's been 8 years, I wrote a business plan. That business plan turned into 8 months later, Luminary. I decided that I was going to take a step back from my finance role and really go all in on this idea. Lots of people told me I was nuts. And then when I said I was going to fund it myself, they said I was even crazier. But I really wanted to prove the concept.
Okay.
And I wanted to see, I knew we could become a business that was both profitable and sustainable. And then if and when I wanted to go out and raise, then I already had that concept and I already had a business. And so that's what we set out to do. I wrote a business plan, I did my financial modeling, and I was off to the races. We started the business in New York City. So we have a physical location right in Nomad. And
was that always the vision to have what was the initial vision, right? So it was like a physical space,
physical
entrepreneurs, not just women
and not just
allies.
Entrepreneurs, right? So the whole idea was to make an ecosystem even bigger for founders, entrepreneurs, small business owners, those in transition, anybody that was navigating a path that felt a little bit lonely, or where do I fit in, or what's my next step? And what I found in my career is I learned by just being around others. And if I was only around bankers, yeah, that was great. But I loved learning from other people in other industries. And so I thought I could create this multiplier effect, or we could create this multiplier effect if you open the rooms and widen the tables with more seats for all different kinds of people. And that knowledge transfer would happen. And that's exactly what transpired. We have no application process. We said, join now. If this is the community that you think you need, try us out. And so before we even opened the physical doors, we had a wonderful several hundred founding members.
And this is pre-digital, right? So you're like, come meet up. Like,
yes,
let's meet.
In person, right? This is pre-COVID. So that's what people did.
Yeah.
And it was...
What a concept.
What a concept that in real life. And it was wonderful. Listen, it was stressful. It's the first year I'm running a physical business that I had no idea how to do it. And I had a great team around me. And that's something that also you talk a lot about. I hear a lot of times people say, well, I'm going to just do it myself. You cannot run a 15,000 square foot space on your own.
No one does it successfully by themselves.
No. And so even before we started, we had a team and it was great. We ran about 5 programs every week for that first year. And then I remember January of 2020, my COO and I sat down and we were looking at the numbers. We were like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is working. Like, let's keep going. We were feeling so incredible. And then a month and a half later, COVID hit. Actually today, we're recording today.
Mm-hmm.
This
March
is the
30th,
day.
This is COVID time. Yeah.
New York was like, we're shutting down in a week.
Yeah.
And so we were like, wait a second. What do you mean? Everybody comes to our physical space. And because we have events, but we also have co-working and we have, it's an incredible venue. We were like, wait a second. It's also Women's History Month. We have to go online and we'll do it for a couple of weeks because this whole thing was
going to be over. Yeah. So quick.
But because no one knew what to expect, all of a sudden people were like, I'm not coming in. I'm going to cancel. I didn't blame them for that. We were all worried. You didn't know it was a crisis. And so we lost that revenue literally overnight because all of those B2C, those individual members that were paying for their membership were like, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And also, I don't know if I'm going to have a job. We don't know what's going to happen. And so we really doubled down on our B2B. We had launched with both models. We had a B2C model and a B2B where we were working with corporates, in particular supporting their employee engagement, employee learning and development with all of our programming and content. And that was it because our companies were coming to us and saying, wait a second, my employees no longer just have to be in New York to access this. they can be anywhere in the world. And because we're gender inclusive, we didn't have to just say it was only for women. Now, predominantly, our community is driven by women. It's for women, it's built by women, but it's open to all. And so that really set the tone for our way we accelerated growth on the B2B side and then continued to stabilize the B2C as we were bringing people back into the space. I'm using air quotes.
The digital space
for
now.
the digital space. And so the longer it went on, the more people were saying, well, we actually like this flexibility of joining digitally. And also, if I'm in New York, I can pop into the space.
Yeah.
So it's been a long 7-year journey, but that was the impetus. I really just wanted to create a space back then physically where all types of people could come together and learn from one another and really go back to, if you think about at least when I was growing up, a community was where you got support, where you gave support. And I wanted to kind of get back to that, where we've now grown into such a global world. A lot of that has been lost.
Yeah. I mean, that's such an incredible vision that you had and foresight to say we need to bring community together. Pivot, lost all your revenue. You didn't get to the part where I wanted to know, you then ended up acquiring companies. So you're like literally taking this massive hit and people are canceling. You already said you invested in a team before, like you were like ready to hit the ground running with this financial model you had built. You've gotten people in place and you've got bills to pay.
A lot of bills.
And there's no money coming in. And then you decide during COVID, while you are trying to, and I love the one-to-many. I think we talk about this often. As women, sometimes we're stuck on that B2C model so often. We tend to forget enterprise, corporates, one-to-many. My exit would not have happened if I stuck one-to-one to one. It was when we expanded on the one-to-many enterprise partnerships, as well as like for every part of my business. As soon as we've expanded, it's been like the biggest source of expansion, but we forgot that. So you were like smart, way smarter than I was. And you were like, we're going to have B2C. We're going to have this. We're going to have a team. Everything's crashing. And then you do M&A. Like that was your thought?
It was not. It was not originally. So when I was at JP Morgan.
Finance bro of you. I like this.
I got recruited to JP Morgan from Bank of America right before the financial crisis. Like literally, I was calling my boss, who I had never met in person, saying, am I still moving to London for this job as Lehman Brothers is collapsing? And he's like, yeah, like we're not going anywhere. We're investing in a downturn.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And so I moved to London 7 years, whatever. And when the pandemic hit, one of my mentors, she's an incredible CEO, Mindy Grossman, who came out of Nike, HSN, WW, she texted me and said to me, are you doing okay? This is like in March. And I said, I don't know if I'm doing okay. And she said, never waste a good crisis. And then light bulb, Jamie Dimon's sort of, ultimate mentor. I'm going, okay, invest in a downturn, never waste it. Okay, we've got to make it through this. So we really went and accelerated that B2B focus while we were starting to build our digital model for our B2C community. My team at that back then, and they are today, but that team back then just got shit done. They were like, we're not failing. We cannot let this thing put us out of business because we know we have something. By September, we were feeling much better. Like the revenues were back. We had built this digital model. B2B was buzzing. And we started to see companies that were like, I'm not going to make it. And through members of Luminary contacting me, we got introduced to a company that had built an incredible professional development platform, more of the B2B side. And they said, listen, they all had full-time jobs and this was being done on the side. They're like, we can't do it anymore. And we really want to find a good home for our clients, which is also their community. And so they approached us. We said, let's do it. They were like, we have 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks to do an expedited due diligence and figure this out, and also bring on a team of 6 people.
Wow.
Why
do they only have 2 weeks?
Because they were going to have to.
They were going to go under. Yeah.
And so we said, all right, well, we know there's value in this, and also the people were great. So we made it work. My COO at the time, she's still a great friend. We literally were working 24/7. It was like I was still in the banking days.
Yeah.
And I was so excited about it. we acquired them. And then by sort of the end of that year of 2020, I'm like, how the hell did we do this? But we did it. And then that really was a light bulb moment for me around, okay, organic growth is great and we're going to continue to do that. But inorganic is a real opportunity for us if we do it right.
I actually don't think a lot of entrepreneurs listening might even understand the difference between organic growth and inorganic growth. Do you mind explaining on the acquisition side of like what an inorganic growth engine could be?
Sure. I mean, inorganic could be you are acquiring something. You could be merging with something or someone. We just saw, I don't know if you know this brand Tuyo. It's a Latino woman food company. And she and two other Latina women-owned food companies merged together. So talk about, they're all going it alone. They're all competing for shelf space in a supermarket. Now they're coming together and they've built a much bigger company and a much better management team to take that company forward if they ever want to exit. And so I think inorganic is not what you're building yourself, right? You're not doing it yourself. This was a great opportunity to take someone else's business, tuck that in, and you know this because you've done it. The hardest part is integration. It.
Yep.
But we spent, even in the early few weeks to a few months, understanding not only the clients and what they were looking for and having really detailed conversations. Remember, we acquired this company. We had to uphold all of those contracts for the life of that contract. So it was a very quick due diligence. We almost didn't, probably good. We didn't know what we were getting into, but we got we really acquired some great clients and some great talent. And then making sure that that talent was either a short-term hire or a longer term. And half the team decided to be short-term and the other half decided to be long-term. So you have to really understand if you are going after inorganic, buying something, merging, et cetera, the integration is critical. And that's where a lot of these fall apart.
I think it's just something that we don't even think about, right? But I do think that in order for you to acquire, though, your house has to be in order as well.
Absolutely.
So that's like a huge part of it, even though there was a lot of falling apart, which is kind of crazy to be able to like do it while your ship's rocking, to say, yep, come on board, while like your deck's all over the place too. The foundation is really important. I got to do M&A post my Series C. And that's what I got excited for with the private equity. Like, why'd you pick that private equity? We had so many different partners. I got so excited because they had a roll-up strategy. We were a platform. Yes. They had a roll-up strategy is where you kind of do verticalized buy of different smaller softwares to go create it into a larger platform, or but it's still going to the same, your end customer is the same, or your end market, or your end. And so that's a roll-up. And they had a lot of experience in that. And we were the payment platform of that. And all of the processing was going to competitors. And so it was like, I was just really excited about things I had not done. I was really eager in my CEO journey to always kind of like do the next thing. And so it was exciting. I chose them. We did 3 acquisitions in 18 months. And I bought out the first, they're like, who do we want to buy? And that they were a full-on M&A shop. And I was like, I want to go buy Payment Depot. That was my competitor to Fat Merchant at this time. And they were like my number one, like the thorn in my side. Every time we changed something on the website, they would change something on the site. Like we always have that one.
Right.
And I was like, I want to go take them out, you know? Yeah.
I've got one of those in my mind.
Yes. And but you know, that was where my mind went right away. They were the first acquisition that we did. And it was a pretty large acquisition for it to be the first one. It wasn't just like a small. So we were the strategic buying out our competitor. Man, it was so good to sit across on the other side and like sign that check. But you know, what was really funny is that everyone's human at the end of it. Yeah. And I actually really enjoyed like the founders, like during the process. One of them ended up like fully exiting out. And then we ended up bringing on the team as well. And we had a really strong house. And so it was actually really a great acquisition for us in that. And then we got like, that was like kind of my feet got my feet wet in that. And we did a couple of different acquisitions as well. But integration, which just means that you're integrating your culture, your people, your process, all the things to make it successful. It's a thing, but it's exciting. And we need to all be thinking about different ways of growth. So hopefully you're hearing this and you're like, different ways, but also don't be intimidated, right? Yes. It just isn't a way to think about different avenues of growth instead of it just being like one to one to one to one does not have to be the only way. So Coming back to what does it mean to be Luminary? So tell me about this brand and what does it actually mean to be Luminary? What does it mean for you as the founder of this when you bring on members? What is your vision for the people in your community?
I'll take a step back on why it's called Luminary. As I wrote the business plan, it was all about, again, this gathering of people that could share information and exchange knowledge and really propel one another forward, right? So again, if you're trying to get your next job, if you're trying to get that promotion, you're trying to build your business, this idea of bringing people together in an ecosystem that we can tap into, that you can give and take from. That's a community too.
Yeah.
And I had spoken at actually a Women's History Month event that same March, and I had not yet named or settled on a name of Luminary. And a gentleman in India that I had never met, but had worked at JP Morgan when I was there, and I spent a lot of time traveling for clients. He DM'd me on LinkedIn. And he said, I just read your Women's History Month post. It's incredible what you do for young women. I'm on the board of Girls Inc. And he said, you were always such a luminary.
Oh.
And I was like, luminary. Well, let me look this up really quick. And I read the definition. It was a guiding light. It was a legacy. It was a heroine. It was everything that I knew I wanted to be in that community. And that was it. I then jumped on GoDaddy and all of that. And like, look, and you can't get luminary.com. By the way, whoever owns luminary.com, I would love to talk. But I figured out all different ways we could get, different hashtags and different, the handles. And that was it. I was like, that is it. It was like that, again, that light bulb moment. I was like, I knew in my gut that was the name. And I've actually DM'd him back and said, you don't know this, but now you've become my luminary because you just inspired the name of this company. So if he's listening, hopefully he's watching. And that was it. And I really feel like a true luminary lifts others up and lifts themselves up too at the same time, because you cannot, you talk about the oxygen mask and you can't do it all for everyone, but you have to also do it for yourself. We are the best advocates for others when we are our own best advocate. And I learned that very early in my career. And so that was what I was building. And I said, if I can role model that inside the community and then everyone else starts doing it, it will take on a life of its own. And I truly believe, 7 years later, it has.
I love that. What a great story and so inspiring. And I feel like Luminary gives me, it's like hope as well in terms of light. Like light is it is that light. So you've had this community now for 7 years. What does it actually take to build a community? Because this is all the talk now.
I know.
Everywhere. We've had communities naturally as part of building community, but now brands and companies and founders, regardless of if you are selling a physical good now, we're having conversations about building community around brands. So could you tell me what it actually takes to build community and why, what have you found to be successful? Because this is now something we all need to be building in our businesses.
First of all, it is not a build it and they will come exercise. I think there's a big myth in that it's easy. Number one, the minute you begin building a community, that means you have to show up for that community every single day. And the community expects that out of you, especially if they're paying for that community. And so the value, you must always be thinking about the value that not only you're providing to the community, but the community is providing to one another. We set out early to have guardrails around what was expected. We have a code of conduct in our community that everybody, when they join, has to be signed that code of conduct. Maybe some of them don't even realize that, but it is ingrained in who we are. I think the other thing is, if you're doing it for purely financial reasons, it will never work.
It's going to fail.
When I started my first job in banking, over every door, in every building, in every campus of that bank, it said, think of yourself as a customer. So when you were coming and going, you were always looking up and going, oh, okay. And that is how I think of myself as a member of the community. How do I want the community to show up for me? How should I be showing up for the community? We've been building community for, like you said, forever. We just didn't have that word. I was doing it inside the banks that I worked for. I was doing it in my school and my athletics. I think if it is truly authentic, that's community. But make no mistake, you have to be engaged. You have to show up. And the more you give, the more the community will take. And so it is not for the faint of heart.
It isn't. It's literally one of the toughest things. And sometimes it happens naturally. And it's a big responsibility then as well. I know that feeling of it's a big responsibility, but it is also so purpose driven, right? When you see what community does, you don't have, you do it together, and there's so much success in that. Your members are corporate executives, you have entrepreneurs, scaling entrepreneurs, primarily women. What are the most amount of challenges that you see? So they're coming, like you have one of the largest communities for this category. You get to zoom out from a CEO lens, and you like, we're all in it sometimes. So you get to kind of zoom out and you're like, this is what I see if I were to like bucket the top 3 things that I see emerge as these are the challenges that I see our members are facing every day. What are those challenges?
It's interesting. The challenges, actually, you would hope the challenges would change. I think AI is definitely something that we're hearing now in every single conversation and how that's changing the way we work. But I still think that this idea of self-promotion, which most people hate that term, I love that term.
Okay.
Because it's not bragging as if it's based on facts. And so why shouldn't I talk about my accomplishments, especially to people like my manager and my leaders, because they're not mind readers. And again, don't wait until it's your mid-year or year-end if you're in a more corporate environment. If you're a founder, you should be telling your story. You should be talking about your business. And again, if you're doing it with the right intentions, then it's not bragging. And so advocacy for oneself is huge. In other words, self-promotion. This is something that women struggle with, and in particular, women of color and anyone from an underrepresented community more than anyone. It's also not the cultural norm. So have a mindset shift. What are you proud of? If you're proud of it, then why not talk about it?
Because we've been taught humility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you can still have humility and be proud.
Yes.
I'll just give you one quick example. I was teaching a workshop actually 2 days ago. It was online through one of our corporate members, and it was mixed men and women. And a gentleman came on and he said, I can't really talk about myself because I'm just like everybody else. And I said, okay, give me a list of a couple of accomplishments. He's like, well, I was a Marine. I did boot camp. I was this. I said, what? Well, those are your accomplishments. He goes, yeah, but millions of other people do it too. I said, but this is your story. So own it. And that doesn't take away from the other millions of people that have done it, but this is your accomplishment. So be proud of it. And the minute I said be proud of it, you saw him on this virtual Zoom go, oh, yeah, I am proud of it. And I can talk about it. So the self-advocacy part is a big one. I think the others is this idea of networking, and we've talked about it, and relationship building, and really, again, a mindset shift. Networking is not just the business card exchange. What can you do for me? It's about truly building relationships that have a two-way street. And by the way, we're all busy. I mean, think about it. You just said it took us forever to get this booked. We're busy. That doesn't mean we have any less of a relationship, but we're willing to work at it and invest in it and catch up from time to time. So relationship building, and the other piece that is coming up, and it's the 2 words I really want to get rid of in this, the vocabulary that we have is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I
hate that word.
I hate it. We all have insecurities, no matter who you are. You may not talk about them, but we all have them. And so if you are sitting at the table, you're there for a reason. If you're sitting in the back of the room, you're still in the room. Lean into the strengths that you have. You are there for a reason. And if you don't know everything, none of us do, learn. Keep working really hard. Raise your hand. Increase your visibility. Build influence. These are all the things that all of us need to navigate our paths, no matter what path we're on.
So you gave me 3 of the biggest challenges that you see across 20,000 members. You said visibility. Okay. You said imposter syndrome. Okay. And then you said relationships.
Yeah.
But none of those actually have to do with business or career.
No.
But they have everything to do with business or career. It's the mindset.
Exactly.
And we all struggle with it at every single level. I feel like I always try to share this. Every time I'm like on stage, I'll be like, I'm a little nervous today. I still get anxious. I still have to, when I sit with a new hire sometimes, or like a big leader joining the team, I have to prepare myself.
Yeah.
When I have a big podcast interview that I'm nervous for, a big stage I'm going on, these feelings are all normal feelings at every stage, because there's always that next point that you're like, there's another room, there's
100%.
there's another ladder, there's another this, there's another stage, there's another conversation. And so we all go through that. That's like the human part of building businesses, building careers, building companies. And sometimes just feeling like, and I think this is the best part about community. And even I see this so often in our Millionaire Founders Group. That's the community that I'm closest to in my 7-figure network, where 100 women, we are all on a very tight, we're in the group WhatsApp that's going off all the time. And it's really special. Like, it's actually not noisy. We're there for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And these are still all the same things that we talk about at this level. But what community does is when someone else is feeling that, you kind of feel a little less crazy. You're like, oh yeah, you don't feel alone.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, you feel that too? And then we kind of can champion each other out of it. So I actually don't think that those feelings ever go away, but you don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah.
What is community? It's that backbone. It's that support. It's like, go for the thing. It's the nice, because you're not going to have that nice voice in your head. It's the championing. It's the cheering each other on. And that is community.
Yes.
And that's what lifts everyone.
Yes. The same workshop that I taught the other day, and I love facilitating. So I love doing these, especially for corporate partners, because that's my background.
Yeah.
And so I can relate to these people that are navigating the corporate ladder. Another example of a gentleman, he's taken so many of our workshops that we do for his company. And he sent me a DM on LinkedIn. And he's like, I look at my career in one way. You, Luminary, look at it in another way, and it brings different perspective. And that's another thing that community does. It brings new and different and diverse perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may be heads down looking at a problem your business is facing, or your career, or even personally, but letting someone else in and offer advice, lessons learned, potential solutions, it's a show of strength, not weakness. And I think that's how you leverage and utilize a community. And again, I am biased. I never knew that I needed a community until I started Luminary.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how alone I felt until I started sort of watching and listening and being a part of these conversations. And I was like, this is something that I've been missing probably my whole life.
Actually, I kind of want to pause on that point. I think that a lot of women build naturally. We build communities. We're building communities within our companies, within our schools,
Families.
but we don't ourselves have a community. And we're not putting ourselves, even for myself, like even after building all the communities, I too still am like, where's my community? And then we find other community leaders and we try to get together to not feel crazy ourselves, but we each need to also have a space that we can go to that is our safe space too.
100%.
You need a safe space. Talk to me about, members, like you have a membership, like a monthly membership model, just to kind of get into the business side of it. How has the industry changed with post-COVID? There's so many communities. Like, where do you see the community space going from an industry's perspective and the business model perspective?
I think one, we're always watching the space. I think if you, whatever business you're building, if you don't understand the industry or aren't watching the trends and what's happening, then again, you're really in a negative space, because you've got to be seeing. So I just even physically, because we have co-working within our physical location in New York, that behavior has changed dramatically from pre-COVID to now. People are like, well, I don't need to get out of my pajamas. I can work from home, especially entrepreneurs. But I think there's still this big loneliness factor. Why people still come virtual, flexibility, convenience. I can be in and out. I can get education. But for us, I think we see community is needed now more than ever before. This world is so divided. People are feeling very lonely. We have a mental health crisis, right?
Yes.
You're seeing geopolitical craziness. And so people want safe spaces and they want to feel like they're supported. And if you're an employee of a company, you may do that inside with one of your employee resource groups, but you may also want to just talk to other people outside of your company. And so that's one of the better parts of our business model is bringing employees from all different industries into the community that they can learn from one another, because the grass is always greener, right? If you work at one bank and you're thinking, well, that bank's much better, if you actually talk to one another, usually it's not. It's like the same shit, different company. And so, but also, how do you manage through? So many of our members are also caregivers. And so we have to remember that communities aren't just, at least our community at Luminary isn't just there for the professional. It's there for the personal. It's there for the health crises. It's there for the caregiving issues. It's there for the mental health, the financial health, and teaching people how to navigate through that. So our model, while it's changed in that we've adapted and brought new types of membership, we've expanded our corporate membership. The biggest part of our business, which usually people are surprised at, is our B2B, because most people identify community with B2C. But day one, I was like, the way to have more impact, the way to build a bigger business is through B2B, and not just brand sponsors, but really integrating ourselves inside companies. I mean, we work with JP Morgan, Verizon, Indeed, LVMH, Under Armour, Marshalls. And so building these relationships internally and externally is how our B2B model has grown. And we continue to look at ways to make that even bigger.
I think that there's a really beautiful model, even within your entrepreneurial model. Like, there are companies, like my company, Worth, has 60 employees. I'd love for them to be part of Luminary.
Exactly.
Right. And it doesn't have to be the JP Morgan.
Exactly.
Right? But I want a space for my team to also go.
Your size company is even a better example because you don't have the budgets of the JP Morgans, right? But your people—
we can't have private executive coaches.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so we love working with small to medium-sized businesses because those employees deserve investing in their professional development and personal development just as much as all the big guys, the big multinationals. And so we thrive with those because they're actually seeking it more because they don't have the LinkedIn learning that's on their company intranet and all these other, where they're competing for time and resources. So
I like that.
Absolutely.
I could talk to you forever. I did want to pick your brain on something because I'm always like, we're growing, we're all growing together. Something that I've just watched you do really well is partnerships, right? So partnerships and strategic partnerships, brands, and not necessarily sponsored brand deals. Real partnerships that go beyond that one time, not the just content creation, true partnerships. We have the most incredible entrepreneurs listening here. How do they leverage partnership? How did you get into the door? How do they get into the door? What defines a good partnership? How do you even get dollars from the partnership? Help us break through the partnership.
Well, you say it best. And by the way, I keep telling people you trademark it. Your network is your net worth, right? You have got to use your network.
You can borrow it, by the way.
I keep borrowing it, but I always say, and trademark by Suneera Madhani.
You could just tag it on social. I'm happy with that.
Your network is your net worth. So for us, for me, it was immediately going into my network and saying, who do the people that I know, the decision makers that I know, the senior people that work for companies that I know I could get in front of? That was the first playbook. And then, but even before doing that is, what do I have to offer them that could be of real value? So if you think about that internal, right? These employees are all looking for more professional development. They want more resources. They want more connection. They want more negotiation. We have a playbook. We can bring that programming right to you. You don't have to hire more people and spend more money on headcount. You can almost outsource it to us. You think about an employee resource group inside of a company, they get very little budget and they think they have to do so much. They work with us now. And so when you think about partnerships, you have to meet them in the middle. Value proposition. What problem are you solving for them?
But how did you even get the meeting?
Well, your network.
So it's relationships.
I mean,
it's like who you know.
Relationships.
It's all really. I've literally also, unfortunately, I don't think I've ever forged a partnership with a cold email, with a blind intro, with like a LinkedIn DM. It's never happened. It's always been because I met somebody in person at a conference, through a friend,
Exactly.
at the thing,
My
at
former
a panel, like literally through the podcast. And those are how the relationships, like
So I'm
getting
going
out
to
of
give
the
you a great
screen.
example.
Yeah.
In COVID 2020, a bank, I will just say a bank was hosting a women's network event virtually. They asked me to speak. I said, sure. One of our individual members worked there and she's like, please speak about self-advocacy, et cetera. So I go on this, virtual an hour. It's an hour of my time. It is all women in finance. So perfect. That's where I came from. A woman that was on that virtual session sends me a DM. Your talk was amazing. I'd love to learn more about Luminary. She worked for Fitch Ratings. Fitch, we said, oh, wow, Fitch Ratings. Do you have a women's network? Do you do professional development? Remember, this is still in core COVID. We get on a Zoom. She's like, this is what we are looking for. We have now partnered with Fitch for 5 years. And it has just grown and grown and grown. And back to, if you are looking for that one-off just for the logo on your step and repeat, fine. That may be your model. That's not ours. We want to find companies where we can provide value that are also providing value to us. And some of that is financial. And some of that is bring us your experts, bring us your content. What's the win-win?
Mm-hmm.
That's a partnership.
That's a partnership.
So always be thinking about that win-win. And I advise a lot of our founders in our community about how to build that. We really rarely do a one-off because also the community is smarter than that. And they know when it's just about the dollars. Now, by the way, I make no mistake, never leave dollars on the table. But in order to build a real partnership, I think of it as this is the long game. We're playing the long game here. This is not a transaction. This is a relationship, and it may take time, but I'm willing to invest that time so that we can grow this relationship and this impact and the value much bigger than it is when it starts.
I like that. And I think it's just important to have it on your radar to say, I'm going to build 3 partnerships this year, right? Like just get started. And I actually think that partnerships, you don't need so many. Like think about the right ones that you're seeking and doing, and they don't have to just be the big logos.
Right.
Complementary to who's reaching that customer that you're reaching, or an adjacent even product or service. Like those are sometimes the best styles of partnerships too, where it could even be not necessarily even a competitor in your space, but they're doing something completely adjacent to you. If you're a social agency partnering with a podcasting agency, right? Like that's a form of a partnership. And think about like brainstorm on partnerships. And even this year, I think that this is something I do so well in fintech. And this was like I told you this on a Zoom call that we had in January. I was like, I have been doing this completely by myself here for so long. I've been busy.
Yes.
And my only goal for this year, it's not growth, it's not anything, it's pick 3 strong partnerships.
Yeah.
And I want long-term partnerships. Nothing, it doesn't have to be the shiniest thing. It doesn't have to be the biggest splash launch podcasting campaign. I want long partnerships that I'm going to invest in.
Yes.
Right. And I'm like, it's going to require my time, my investment, energy to go build this partnership, but it's a long-term play. And you don't need a lot of them. It's like picking the 1 to 2, picking the max is 3. And I was like, I want to find 3 strong partnerships this year for us.
Which is the absolute best way to look at it. It's the same as like if you had 15 priorities, you're never going to do them successfully. Have that stretch goal of, even if it's 1, if you're like, I need 1 big one that's going to drive return, meaning return for the community, whatever it is for your business. We look at it in a couple of different lenses and then measure it. I mean, we have such strict KPIs for the business on both our B2C membership as well as B2B. And like my team knows these are the KPIs that we must hit every year.
That's CEO mode for you.
Otherwise, your review is not going to be as good as it can be, right? And the business relies on those KPIs. So if we're not all working together, I come from a sports background. So you win together, but guess what? You also lose together.
I mean, we could sit here and talk all day, but I hope I'm leaving you something. She's leaving you something about community, partnership, growth, and just giving value is like what I feel that you continuously do and building something with legacy, not just quick and fast, because those really just don't last. And I've seen so many communities come and go, right? Even since COVID. That's what I was asking about, like the state of the union of communities. I think that communities are going to continue to stay, I think that you're going to have to provide value outside of just like the paid community. And they're going to be paying for that community, but we're going to have to really show what that unique value is
in order to retain them.
In order to retain that value and engagement, and what, like, listening to what your members want is really important. And what I have found in our community, sometimes as women, we want to overgive and overgive and overgive. Less is actually more. Let them ask for more.
Yes.
Instead of me like pushing, because I'm always feeling like, are we doing enough? Are we doing enough?
Yeah, you are.
And we are.
And then that's the opportunity for them to engage and say what else they would want, versus you're just throwing stuff at them that may not even make sense.
This is just amazing. Kate, what is next for Luminary? How do we get involved? How do we get signed up? How do we bring our companies in? So tell us, where do we find you and Luminary?
So we are luminary.com.
We are luminary.com.
That's our call to action.
Mm-hmm.
We are Luminary is also our Instagram, I believe our TikTok. And then and LinkedIn is Luminary. And then for me, it's Cate Luzio, Kate with a C. I'm most active on LinkedIn. And, you know, as I said, like, we're a Join Now community. Take a look. If you work for a company, let us know how we can help. And we are doing around the country. It's why we're here in Austin. We do a Luminary Live. So we pop up in 5 to 6 cities every single year. We're in Austin. In LA, we're in June. We'll be in West Palm in November.
I'll be at your April event.
Your exit plan.
Your exit plan. Let's tell everybody about that, because I would love my community to come show up. I'll be speaking.
Perfect call to action.
Perfect.
Your exit plan. So talking about M&A for business owners, predominantly women. We started this in December. We're doing another one in April 22nd.
And all of this is included in your membership.
And this one, we're partnering with the amazing Carrie Kirpin from the Whisper Group. She's a Luminary member. We love her. And we are going to have the amazing Suneera on. And it's a half day of valuation. How do you value? How do you get a valuation for your business? How do you find buyers for your business? How do you acquire business? How do you prepare your company for an exit, whether you think you're ready today or in 5 years, or you're not even thinking about it?
I love this. I will see you there April 22nd in New York City.
And online.
So there's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse.
Exactly.
You have to get into the room. And that's the answer. Your network is your net worth.
You got it.
And this is exactly how women build relationships and build each other up. I'm so grateful for you in my life and in our community and all the support that you give from afar. She's the real deal. And I'm telling you, she's the real deal. I meet a lot of incredible women, and Kate is the real deal. We can't wait to follow you. We can't wait to tag you. Let's blow her social up. That's something we do really well. So tag Kate, tell her how much you learned today on the episode. Tag us. Leave a review, guys. We are 6 years into the show, a weekly show.
Incredible.
It's incredible. It's so much work, and I love it so much. And I hope you feel the love from me and from all of us here today. So if you like it, leave a review. It means a lot to us. And hit subscribe on the show and share it with your friends. Until next week on the CEO School podcast, I'll see you on Monday.